I'm joined by two wonderful ladies, each with a seniority that comes from actual experience and personal choices in terms of making the link between the science of health and the science behind quality of life and the everyday choices we do as individuals, communities, or societies, but with a lot of experience also in some of the difficulties that we face when we are searching the right information, the right choices, or deploying tools that could help individuals of all ages address either the problems that life throws at us, those that have answers, and in some cases those that don't have an actual answers, but where we have tools to actually make their lives better, whether it's their end of their lives or management of disease or of personal challenges when it comes to that. So with that, Mihaela, Geoana, president of Fundația Renasterea, and Larisa Petrini, who's a consultant ultimately developing a personal business in consulting on issues related to health and personal well-being, joining us in a conversation about science, life, and the good life. There are some thousands-year-old questions about how do you go about living, not just healthy living, but really a good life, a complete life. And for that, we are responsible for our own choices, but we're never alone in this. Society both makes our lives more complicated and sometimes easier. And we live today in a time of unprecedented changes, scientific, but also in terms of communication. How do you see those impacting quality of life and the way we go about it?
Preparing for today, I was looking last night over some ideas, and you know, the good living came from Aristotle, and he was saying that the good living or happiness comes from virtue, but also from health, wealth, and beauty. So the theme today, we talk about science, healthcare, and education. I would stress that science and healthcare are very strongly related, and we see in the last 15-20 years progress that was maybe is extraordinary, and it influenced the healthcare industry or the access to healthcare for everybody. I have a few, like the genome or like leapfrogging, the stem cells, their telecommunications and the IT industry and telemedicine that gives access to you know, to care, or even the medical process is different because they have access to all your medical history and all your lab tests, and so the diagnosis is differently done today. But as we talk about this huge progress that the science has made and healthcare is benefiting from, we see that education is lacking in speed of this progress, and we saw it in some very concrete cases that we can talk about later on, about campaigns that we conducted about vaccination for cervical cancer, or about campaigns over Hep C, hepatitis C. But we see in many countries, but in Romania even more so, a lack in education, and I mean it in the way of people knowing how to prevent disease, what to do to keep their health, or what you know, what are credible sources, where do we get our information from, and I think these are you know, very important problems to address.
Larisa Petrini, those are a few of the challenges that any person has to deal with when it comes to getting the right type of information. What, in your experience, is in this respect the biggest challenge? Is it sifting through information and choosing the right one, or actually making the decision conscientiously that I need to change my life? I want to live a healthier life for myself, for my family, for my kids.
I would say both. Both of them are valid. I have a background in communication. I used to run such and such EPR, so I have a different perspective, I would say, in terms of communication and in terms of campaigns when it comes to awareness. I used to work a lot on social campaigns and campaigns linked to health, and what I observed, and it has to do a bit with my decision. I took the decision to make this shift from communication to healthcare in 2010. For me, it was extremely interesting back then in 2010 to observe two specific areas, if I may say so. One is the one related to kids and schools and what's happening there. And unfortunately, statistics are not optimistic. When we talk about obesity, for example, Romania is #1. And second, the corporate world. And what I do today is to run a company, a service company, offering corporate well-being services. And it's not easy, I have to say that. Not easy to educate, because it's a very, very new type of service we are offering. Some of the companies are open to take the chance, if I may say so, and to at least test and have an experiment in terms of corporate well-being. And it's all about prevention, indeed. And going back to what you said earlier, it's a lot about us. It's a lot about us taking the responsibility, but it's also about companies. We spend 10, 12 hours working. So when I hear work-life balance, it's very popular, and we
Balance.
Exactly, exactly. And my first question is, where is life? Okay, very interesting to talk about balance and to talk about equilibrium and lots of buzzwords. The question is, where is life, if I have life, when I spend 10 hours at work and then 2 hours in traffic? So what's left? I have 12 hours spent with work and traffic, and almost 0 or maybe 1 or 2 hours for myself. Going back to kids, because this is something very interesting, and Mihaela mentioned something very interesting related to education. It's not only about campaigns and awareness. Sometimes, and this is a very practical observation in terms of schools and educators, I spent many hours organizing healthy cooking workshops, because I am also a Jamie Oliver ambassador. Kids are open and they are very interested, and they like the idea to play around food, and this is Jamie's philosophy around food, to play with it, to be involved from the beginning if possible, and to cook together with kids and to make them part of the process. What kind of barriers we had as ambassadors were related to infrastructure first, and then to lots of papers we had to fill in and the educators had to fill in. Not easy, and sometimes they are discouraged and they simply say no thank you. So what we did, we simply moved from the public schools to the private schools. So I think it's a lot to do in terms of schools, and somehow maybe doing something in relation to the infrastructure. We lack infrastructure, we don't have canteens. It's very, very basic. So you go there and you tell them things about calories or information. You give them information related to calories or the way they should combine food or stuff like this. And they are like, okay, but we don't have canteen. We simply buy chips from the corner, you see. So it's a challenge indeed. It's different in the corporate world for sure. but it's a longer story.
Well, we'll come back to that. Mihaela, Geoana, you've talked about some of the national-wide campaigns, and Larisa saying, look, in some cases it's so difficult that we have to move from public schools to private school, thus reinforcing a social division cycle in Romania, where certain parts of the society, and unfortunately it's the bottom of the pyramid, are underserved, while other parts of the society are better served. So how can you design communication campaigns, but even beyond that, a strategy of accessing or of pushing access to the general population to the type of information related either to healthy living or to access to medical care, in some cases therapeutic care?
In my opinion, of course we need to have access to all the schools. Otherwise, we do wonderful things, but they're just a drop in a glass. So I'm sure that the administration, the Ministry of Education, needs to be part of this process. And I think it's very important to teach kids at a very early age, like 5, 6, 7 years old, how to look for information, what is a credible source, how to navigate on the internet. The internet can be very dangerous. Not only that you get wrong, let's say wrong information or distortion of the truth, let's say, or which is not backed by scientific work, but it can be dangerous for kids. And because the parents did not grow up with the internet, they don't know how to protect their kids. And I think this is the school's job. If you give a kid access to the internet, you have to teach him first how to use it, and how to use it, in his benefit. Of course, he can play these games, and they're very good sometimes. They develop certain skills, but in terms of information, and here we talk about healthy living, how, what nutrition, sports, a lifestyle. You teach these habits young, and you can teach it at school. That's, the best way to do it, and to make sure that, everybody gets it. Of course, the parents need this information. Of course, the mothers make the decision about healthcare. And here we have another, let's say, level of this campaign of educating the public about prevention, firstly. I think we can invest a lot more in prevention, and we will save a lot of money from treatment. And I will give you an example of the vaccine against HPV virus, which is a breakthrough. This is the first ever cancer that can be prevented by a vaccine. It's like poliomyelitis, let's say. Right. And the government, the state made a huge effort to buy tens of thousands of doses of this vaccine. But there was no communication campaign, and besides that, there was internet, underground, whatever campaign saying that this will,
it's dangerous, leads to infertility.
It's dangerous for the kids, infertility, whatever. And they invested lots of money in the vaccine, and we didn't get the benefit. And that's the worst that can happen. Now, today, there are over 5 million, if the number is right, girls that have been vaccinated, and there's no problem with this vaccine, but we still, threw out all this money. So I think every, investment you do, you have to make sure that this gets to the beneficiary. So we need to invest in communication campaign, in correctly informing people, in stressing what is a reliable source. And I think this is something in which, companies, we have to work at all levels and target the different categories of population.
Larisa, one of the difficulties that we face as going through our daily life, that often is, as you described aptly, a daily grind, in fact, family, work, decisions. We think that we can postpone the important decisions. And I'm asking you, and it's a question to both of you, as women and mothers, because if you look at the statistics in Romania, though Romanian women benefit from the same extended life expectancy as everywhere else, women, for reasons specific to the biology of gender. At the same time, the quality of life and healthcare specifically related to women in Romania is not stellar. In many of the indicators, Romania is lagging seriously behind in access to treatment, in access to information, in medical services. Now, I'll admit that that's true throughout the Romanian medical service, and we live in times where this is the object of a lot of attention. But the question is, specifically to you, what can we do individually? And not just the people in this room, but rather the general public, Ion și Marie in the Romanian society. How would you go about making sure that the average citizen in this country has some chance of improving his or her healthcare? Healthcare and quality of life.
Absolutely, both are important. When it comes to information, because this is the first thing I would change in terms of, okay, I have access to internet, myself, my son, every member of my family. What do we do? You said it earlier in terms of Google. So Google is a friend and an enemy in the same time. And what happens? One of my previous teachers, Yale University professor, said once that it's a very dangerous world from one specific perspective. Almost everyone has access to the microphone, and this is dangerous because we have if you we have VIPs giving us advices about diet and what we should eat and how we should move. We have personal trainers giving us advices about nutrition and many other things related to health. We have people or experts, so-called experts, who simply take the microphone and say, I was diagnosed with cancer, so I have the right to tell you what to do and what not to do. And then you have studies and you have universities, most of them big universities, and you compare those studies and sometimes you don't know what to believe because you have Harvard, for example, and then you have Yale University, and both of them made a study about coffee, for example, and one says something and the other one says something else. And when it comes to nutrition, things are extremely confusing, and sometimes you simply don't know what to do and what not to do. And what I do in relation with my clients is to try simplifying their lives. And I will give you just a few examples about what simplicity means when it comes to the way you feed your family or yourself. For example, you go in the supermarket and the question is, what should I buy? The easiest answer could be what my grandmother or străbunica would recognize in this supermarket, and go straight to those ingredients. And we can make an exercise if you want. What we have there, fruits, vegetables, rice, nuts, so stuff like this. And Michael Pollan, who I admire very, very much, he said nutrition is simple, and if you want to follow a simple rule or a simple definition, you should think, or you should follow the following definition. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And in his definition, he says 80% of our food intake should be from plants. Plants meaning fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, and oils, healthy oils, and 20% from proteins coming from, So this is one example. Another example is the, and it has to do a bit with Pareto principle. Be gentle with yourself. And this is very important because we are injected through campaigns as well. Campaigns are both good and they can harm as well. And when someone is giving you or offering you a big promise about your body, for example, make this subscription or use this product and in 3 months your body will be transformed and you will lose 10 kilos. This is an over promise and it's impossible for you to get there. So we have to be realistic in terms of information and campaigns from this perspective as well. So 80-20 is very simple. In 80% of your time, you eat healthy or you are trying your best to eat healthy, and in the rest of the 20%, you allow yourself to eat a cookie or whatever you would like. So extremes are also unhealthy, if you ask me, and you might heard about orthorexia. Mm-hmm. So I think equilibrium and having simply, if you want, it's not always easy to go back to roots, but sometimes our kids can teach us a lot of things, or our grandparents as well.
Oh, we talked earlier about Viskri and some of the stuff related to heritage. And part of that heritage is not just buildings and a certain rural way of life, but that rural way of life includes a certain type of production and nutrition that comes with it. You've also worked in some... Sorry, go ahead.
I meant to mention something about medical care in Romania, information and so on. You're right, but there's also one side of the coin. For example, when we started Renasterea Foundation 15 years ago, in the US, the survival rate of breast cancer was 80%. And in Romania, the survival rate was 20%. And it was exactly the reversed statistics. And looking at both countries, we detect breast cancer in the same way, the same machines, same company selling them. Our doctors are well trained for that. Treatment is exactly the same chemotherapy, the same producers, no difference. We detect it very, very late. 80% of the cases in Romania are detected stage 3 and 4, while in the US, 80% of the stages are detected 0 and 1. And today, their campaign is that you die of breast cancer as you die of flu, because 98% of women survive. And why? Because they prevent it. They go to the doctor once a year. And to tell you more about this, for example, the cervical cancer, this is one disease that can be eradicated. By doing a pap smear test once a year, you detect a precancerous cell, which you treat, and it never becomes cancerous. So we can really eradicate this disease. In Romania, we have screening. So the state, a national program, every woman in this country can get a free pap smear test. In 3 years' time, you know how many women got it? 8% of the population. Because there was no communication campaign. People do not know that they can get it. And if they know they can get it, then they have to go to their medical de familie, get a prescription, stay in line, lose time, travel to there, and then you go to a gynecologist that performs the pap smear test. It might be maybe an inconvenience, but that does not explain the 8%. Mm-hmm. So even when we have things available, we do not use it in the proper way.
So what you're saying is, in fact, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're living in a society where frankly, we have a cultural problem related to not just institutional and shortcomings in terms of access to healthcare, but really also a deficient culture of health.
We don't have the reflex of taking that on us. You know, our health is my responsibility, my health and my kids. So I need to look up and see, what do I need to do? I have to take them to the dentist once a year or once every 6 months. I myself need to do this and that, and maybe I can push my husband to do his tests also. And you have to watch for your parents, or, you know, and make sure they stay healthy. But we do not have this culture of prevention and of the responsibility of our own health. During communist time, we were used to be called for vaccine. We were used, you know, it's epidemic of something, and then they will call, oh, it's a flu epidemic, so this is the vaccine you have to take. Today, it's our own responsibility. Nobody comes or tells you what to do. So I think we have to teach everybody to take care and to prevent, you know, to live a healthy life. I don't think there's one parent in this world that wishes bad for his kid. And still, there are many parents that feed their kids McDonald's maybe every day for lunch, which is not, you know, they don't know how to do better. That's my point.
I think, and I see this in the last 3 years, things are changing and people are more hungry when it comes to healthy living, and marathons are very interesting, popular now, exactly. We go more often to the gym, or we run in the park. We are more attentive to what we eat and what we buy, if it's organic or it's not. Last week I had to prepare an editorial for a magazine, and I found a very interesting statistic. It's a statistic from World Health Organization, OMS, Organizația Mondială. Okay, 80% of the diseases are preventable, and they are talking about lifestyle diseases, diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular diseases. Lots of them are linked with the way we live, the way we eat, and the way we move or not. So I think this is very interesting, and as far as I know, there are programs, and they are going to be imposed locally as well in terms of prevention. And going back to the medical world, the future is very much about personalized medicine. And you mentioned something very interesting earlier. In US, for example, nutrigenomics is very popular. The idea to have a different assessment based on your DNA, and then to have a very, very personalized intervention plan, whether it's a 6 months or a 1 month intervention plan, it's more focused, and you can reach your objectives in a quicker way. So I think I would be more optimistic, and I would say things are changing, and although Romania is there in the top, unfortunately, when it comes to obesity, lots of people, and I see this, although it's the corporate world and not necessarily Ion și Maria, it's a beginning, and
we can leapfrog. I think with the IT industry in Romania, which is at, you know, a great level compared to other countries, we could, in a wise decision, the state could help maybe the healthcare industry or the research development side of that. And I can give you a short example of what we did at the Red Cross. In the isolated villages, we did set up points of first aid, and we trained a family in that village, and with a telephone and 2 conductors, they were performing the electrocardiogram to someone in the village who would feel bad, and they would be suspicious of a heart attack, let's say. And then this signal is transmitted in a center where you have a cardiologist, and he says, yes, it's a heart attack, or no, it's an indigestion. And then that family knows if they have to call the ambulance, if it's an emergency or not. And so you give access to, medical care or emergency intervention to isolated group of people. But this can be multiplicated in different ways.
So what the two of you are saying is that, yes, there's a bleak picture. Romania's problems are many, and some of them are not necessarily getting better. But at the same time, there are both systemic ways to address this, and the society is responding. More people doing sports. A week or so, the Happy Run, which is Race for the Cure, part of the international movement for essentially raising awareness for
breast cancer, and at the same time, doing something good for your health, running or walking.
And you doubled the numbers year to year?
Yes, we doubled the numbers of last year, which was the first edition. So that's great.
I remember about 6-7 years ago, the number of people running in Renasterea Park was, we knew them almost by name. Stephen van Groningen was one of them, always. But then again, member of the Aspen board. But then again, today, all ages, Bucharest Half Marathon, Bucharest Marathon, institutions by now, tens of thousands of people of all ages. Families show up with kids. They need to add a separate day because the numbers are so high. At the same time, you're saying there are maybe not systemic solutions, but localized solutions that technology, with a little bit of understanding, can fill the gap. Now, you mentioned earlier, before we joined the stage, Hep C, and some of the elements that link cutting-edge technological and scientific research and problems in a society like Romania that has a relatively high degree of hepatitis C.
Oh yes, and very much underdiagnosed.
Underdiagnosed.
This is an example of cutting-edge technology, or the latest in the treatment of a disease, paired with a campaign and with the, let's say, understanding of the phenomena of the authorities, and we have a great result. So there's new treatment for Hep C with no interferon, and which in 3 months' time eradicates the disease.
It's actually curative.
It's cured, yes. So we convinced the state, the government, that if we make an educational campaign and if we make testing and we show them that the numbers are much bigger than what we have, what we know, and if this will be, let's say, accepted by the patients, then they will be able to purchase the treatment. But this was another shift, another change of paradigm, that they won't purchase the treatment, they will only purchase the cure. They will pay for every patient that has been cured of Hep C. And we did, for 1 year long, an informational campaign. We told people how this disease is transmitted. We did campaign for Hep A, B, and C, all of them. But then we started testing, and we went to Craiova and to Iași and to Bucharest and to small cities with a caravan, and we tested the population. And we proved that 10% of everybody we tested were positive. Wow. They had hepatitis C. And you can see it in the numbers. If you look at the numbers in Romania, there are counties in which they have, I don't know, tens of thousands of patients, and then there's one county with 0.
And that's a debilitating disease, leading with a high probability to liver cancer.
Stage 4, it's liver cancer. And now...
with the cost implied to the health system,
the treatment,
families.
And also the fact that you lose that person as an active person, and so on. So then there was a negotiation conducted by the company providing treatments and the purchaser. They got to a certain price and to the condition that they will pay only for the cured patients. And today, all the patients in Romania of Hep C stage 4 are treated with this treatment, and there are already more than 3,000 patients free of the disease. And now they're thinking of going to stage 3 and then stage 2. So this is a huge success. But this is only paired with, top-notch treatment with a strong campaign, and then with the understanding of the authorities that this is the solution.
Larisa, here's an idea at the other end of the spectrum. Would you see companies being able to develop programs for businesses or for communities? So Marys or businesses paying for companies that actually not guarantee, but paying companies on a result. So let's say you do an intervention in a community and you say, look, if I decrease your accessing of healthcare for these type of problems in 5 years, this is how much you pay. Or you go to a company and you say, if I decrease the number of zile de concediu, of sick days in that particular company, you get this, and operate that way?
This is already happening in US for many years. And what is very interesting is the fact that each employee can negotiate their insurance policy if they access a prevention program offered by a company like ours. I don't think it's for tomorrow in Romania. It's difficult because in Romania you don't negotiate. I mean, insurance policies are not yet personalized, or they don't treat you in a way that. I mean, the screening is not so strong. It might happen in, I don't know, 2 years, maybe 3 years. We try to do that because it's a very strong argument to go there and tell them, look, I'm going to prove you that your cost is going to be down with even 5%. And why is difficult? Zilele de concediu, sick days, sometimes are not real, especially if you go in a factory. If they have to, how do you say, să culeagă porumbul?
I don't know, to collect.
It's a seasonal thing. Yeah. You will see. Exactly, yeah. So sometimes, because you can afford to simply go to the doctor and ask a medical leave, it's not real. So this is one. Second, it's very difficult to prove the fact that the productivity of your employee is increasing based on this specific thing. Mm-hmm. Productivity is linked to many other things, not only with these type of programs. So this is something we aim for the following years, and we also had a few discussions with insurance companies, and some of them are open to do programs like this, and one of them, I don't think I'm allowed to say any name, or am I? No. Okay. So one of them was very open, and it's related to women. Mm-hmm. So they were open to discuss about the way you can negotiate your insurance policy if you access a prevention program.
Okay. I think the insurance companies should be the most interested because they will save a lot of money.
That's something we can ask in a couple of next couple of days, because we have both insurance and doctors and medical specialists on stage. Now, before we turn to the audience, I have one question about an area that is one of the least talked about in this country. That is mental health care. Romania has a serious case of ignorance about whether it's depression or substance abuse or even milder psychological problems that affect family, work, and the quality of life for individuals. You're both angles, so to speak. How do you see that addressed in the coming years, and what would you first do to address that sector?
I don't know. I think we have to find smart ways to make these problems acceptable. Today there's a huge stigma on these problems. Even if it's a mild depression, people are quite reluctant, or they look at the respective patient in a way which is not the proper way. I think there has to be a smart way to bring these problems and to show that they're so real and so you see them everywhere, even though today we're not able to recognize them, but depression is a big problem in Romania.
Indeed. What we do in our assessment, and this is maybe not enough, but we thought it's extremely important to take into account the psychological side of the individual as well. So what we do in the assessment part is to link the medical condition of the employee with a lifestyle questionnaire. And this questionnaire has in it lots of questions linked with not only depression, but anxiety and lots of conditions you might have, and they're not always in your face, if I can say so. Sometimes they're very subtle, and you don't recognize them as an individual. We can read the assessment, and every single employee receives a health score, and then we have a very thorough discussion, and part of the discussion is linked with this part. So this is what we do so far.
And as we were talking about prevention, a very good idea would be to teach meditation to kids, how to relax and how to have positive thoughts, and this is a huge prevention tool.
And it's happening in US and UK. I saw lots of school implementing it. I also saw something very interesting when it comes to medical schools in US again. They teach students how to cook. I mean, cooking classes in a medical school is really interesting. And then are these mindfulness. They're optional, but they're still there, and you can access them and you can try them. And the kids are very open to try these things.
Thank you. We're open to questions, as provocative as you want. You get the first row. The mic is coming.
I was wondering, probably other countries in our region are facing the similar trend of massive migration towards Europe and towards all corners of our planet. It's 3 million Romanians, as we speak, in the last decade, have chosen to live a better life or whatever, try something different. I was wondering, speaking in terms of accelerating mentality change, because it's both in government but also in the general public, there's a mentality problem. And fighting such a huge inertial phenomenon in one society, you cannot do it only by, administrative tools or a bunch of pioneers and romantic leaders trying to change the world, which is always a good ingredient.
They look pretty determined.
Yeah, but they're not romantic. This is a family judgment. So, but I was wondering, could we not think of harnessing the power of the diaspora in a way in which the most influential link between a family in a remote village of Romania or Ukraine or Bulgaria or wherever, and this is probably true for India or anybody else, is their child, their son or daughter that are living in a place where access to healthcare and access to more or less accurate information, even if popular press and tabloids are distorting big time in the US and the UK, big time, probably even more ferociously than in our country. But I was wondering, the tens of thousands of medical doctors of Romanian origin and nurses that have left, could we not try to find a way to engage them in the sort of a broad communication and accelerating history in a way? Because this is the most, accelerated change in mentalities in our history, and I think this is true because of globalization, but because it's 3 million, it's basically 3 million Romanians out equals the number of employees in the private sector in Romania today. Mm-hmm. So 3 million and something here, 3 million outside. Mm-hmm. Imagine what we do if a portion of that energy could be reversed, not returning, hopefully returning to Viscri or wherever, but why not try to use that fantastic tool of reason and of resonating to the have-nots and to the forgotten segments of our society.
I think that's a very good idea, and of course they all have parents here, and they care a lot about the parents, and sometimes they feel guilty they left, and they're trying to help. I can just mention that we developed a hair donation campaign, Vieți împletite, in which the whole campaign was conducted in Romanian. It was very active on the internet, and we were asking women to cut at least 15 centimeters of hair and donate it, and we're making wigs for patients, oncology patients. And we collected more than 2,000 donations, but 800 of them came by mail from different countries. There were Romanian ladies, women, working somewhere, and we got them from Denmark, from UK, from Spain, of course, Spain, Italy. And this proves that they are looking, reading, and they're willing to participate. They were getting nothing back. But they were, cutting their hair and just sending it by mail to the foundation. So I think that's a great idea and we saw it in the elections, how children living out of Romania influence their parents in how to vote. So they will be more than interested in influencing their parents to stay healthy.
I was involved in a few campaigns linked with the diaspora, and I remember a specific one called Hola Soy Rumano. It was for Spain, and it was a very interesting experience. And my conclusion was, when you go there and when we talked to them face to face, you have a totally different perception. Comparing to what you hear or what you say in the newspapers, whether they are tabloids or other type of newspapers. And I recently discovered a very interesting Romanian lady in UK, and we will work together. We will partner at certain point, maybe this autumn. She doesn't speak Romanian because she left when she was very small, but what she does is amazing, and the UK press wrote about her, and you might want to invite her at one of your events because she's absolutely wow from my perspective. So she created a platform where you can have a DNA test, and then based on your health objective, you can get a very personalized intervention plan with certain experts linked with your objective and your issue. And she's doing this for 5 or 6 years, and she's a superstar in UK, and she's a Romanian. And I called her, we had a Skype conversation and then a meeting, and she's so excited to come here locally and do the same thing here together with us. So I was like, wow, these are amazing people, and sometimes we don't even discover them. We don't know about them, and they are willing to be involved locally and to do things for their countries.
So what I hear is that you look at the diaspora and you see both a repository of help, people that are willing to step in, work with their families, work with their communities, but also a repository of knowledge and cutting-edge solutions for certain areas.
I would mention another thing, because I'm very close to this subject, and it's interesting, and it's a hot subject these days. The organization I will mention, I will make the mention about, is the European Nature Trust. It's an organization behind it's a British person. His name is Paul Lister. Prince Charles is involved in this organization, and I am part of their executive board members. And what we do a few times a year, we bring in Transylvania. Viscri is also part of the story. People from UK, people from US, people from abroad, and we simply show them how beautiful this country is and what they can eat and what they can do here, and they leave amazed. They're so in love with this country and with our food, and it's unbelievable because it created a ripple effect. They leave and they send some other people in the country. So I think this is another perspective, interesting perspective, to bring in not necessarily normal people, but key opinion leaders, people who have influence, and they can bring in afterwards more people and create this. It has to do with perception and communication and awareness as well.
And in a way, we're back to square one. You have to start building a certain culture of quality of life, and that goes full circle. Sometimes we learn about our own resources and heritage from others in a mirror sense. We have time for one more question or comment. There's somebody there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm from the UK and I live in Romania now, so it's very interesting that you're using lots of examples from where I'm from. Picking up on the point about like meditation in schools, for example, I feel like that's an excellent idea, and it would be great to see that more widespread. I was interested in the context of corporate well-being as well. Sometimes some of the corporate programs, you might admit, seem like a sticking plaster on perhaps what might be a more fundamental problem, and perhaps is very actually connected with the mentality from the West, perhaps more extremely from the USA, where people are desiring material wealth and are prepared to work themselves into the ground to get it. I feel, as an outsider and somebody quite new here, that this idea is very much alive and well in Romania as well. Is this a kind of deeper problem, and do you see there's any potential for actually challenging that mentality and challenging that deeper issue rather than the superficial kind of approach?
When we started this company, we had this very practical objective in mind, and this is the reason why we call our services and our platform a lifestyle medicine platform. So what we do, and it has to do with what you said, we want to avoid the superficial approach and what Andrei mentioned earlier about measurement and about the way you can prove to that specific company the fact that your services were indeed helping the employees and is not, how do you say, praf în ochi, another type of benefit you offer them just to have more benefits in your list of benefits. So this is the reason why we link the medical conditions with this lifestyle questionnaire. Each employee receives a health score, and then the intervention plan is personalized, and we can measure again at the end of the road. This is extremely important, and you can measure in terms of health scoring, you can measure in terms of what kind of observations you have on the report, because you go back in the same process. Again, it's not easy to be measured. In the same time, they need it. And I'm talking about employees. Most of them are extremely, extremely happy to receive this kind of benefit, and they use it. Maybe they don't use every single type of service or expert we are offering them, but they are open. Some of them are open to, for example, smoking cessation. This is something very, very high in our top of, I don't know, ierarhia nevoilor or durerilor. So they know they want to have a healthier life. They don't know how to do it. We have access to information. Sometimes we know how to choose quality information. What we don't know every day or every time is how to do it. How to make, for example, healthy habits acquisition is not easy. You have to identify your motivation, if it's intrinsic from inside or outside. So it's a whole process. And then you can press the magic button every single time you feel the need to drop off and go out of that specific process. So it's work in progress. I would say it's work in progress, but I am very practical as a nature, so I'm looking forward to measure every single step we do and every single service we offer.
I think it's called lipstick on a pig.
Okay. Thank you, Andrei.
Just for the record. That's
My
the one
English
comes...
is not excellent, especially today. I'm pretty tired, so thank you for...
But I would put a little twist on that question, because indeed Romanians are working hard. If you look at statistics, the Romanians that appear in stats, the 3.5 million that are employed legally, they're probably a million or so that work on the black market and so on. But if you really look at that, they're both Romanians that work too hard because they're too poor, and Romanians that work too hard because there's now a certain culture of success that comes with the idea that the only way you can have success is through material goods. But our conversation here was that, well, your family matters, your health matters, the quality of your life in Aristotelian terms comes with beauty, not just with how much money in a bank, how big your house is. And then we go back to the panel with the prior panel where we've discussed the territory and rhythm. In Visky, the houses are not big. Do you see a change in the Romanian society where people are willing to say, look, I'm going to make a change in my life, I'm going to make the right choices for my family, also partly by saying no, I'm going to stop here, I'm going to do this much, I'm going to spend more time with my children, you name it.
You know, I don't have numbers, but from what we see, I think this is, it's coming. I think that the young professionals, we see more and more of them, for example, giving up bank jobs or very, let's say, consuming jobs, and they go into the NGO world. They would like to work, or they start a farm, or, you know, and we have many examples of, you know, young bankers that started a tomato farm and they're selling, you know, biologice.
Organic
tomatoes
farming.
Or vegetables, or, you know, from the advertising industry, you know, you see people that, you know, were creative and they worked hard and they were successful, they made money, and now they start something that, let's say, fulfills their need of, you know, raising their kids in a garden, or, you know, being relaxed, enjoying life, having a healthy lifestyle. We see that, but of course, you know, these 25 years of change from a system to another, they induced the, let's say, truth, you know, that you need to have money in order to be happy. But I think now we're starting to discover that you can be happy having a family, being healthy, and, you know, the beauty is all around you, and you can still be happy without being rich per se.
Thank you so much. With this, I think our time is up. About 10 minutes ago, I'm told. Thank you so much. Join me into thanking Larisa and Mihaela for this interesting panel. And we're returning tomorrow with further conversations on the medical, scientific dimensions of public health and healthy living. Thank you so much.
Thank you.